So I'm Mark.Dodge, this is VG.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
So we're going to present on Agile games. Anyone ever played anything that was called an Agile game?
Never.
Anyone ever just played team games?
Yep.
Yeah, 'cause that's really what this kind of comes down to. We try to put an Agile spin on having some fun. We presented this back in October on the fall conference. So a lot of the slides here we're going to kind of skim through because we'd really rather have you guys play a few things than talk about playing, which just sounds stupid. Yeah, kids, this would be really fun if we ever could get out of the rule part here. You know? So, talk a little bit about ourselves. So we both have a pretty strong background in Agile in a lot of different spaces. I just want to point out, someone pointed me to this a long time ago. I like being flawsome. Isn't that an awesome term? Someone who embraces their flaws but knows they're awesome regardless. I mean, isn't that what we all hope to aspire to? It's like, yeah, I know this is like a blind spot for me, but it's okay because everyone else can cover that for me. And Vici?
So where I come from is my passion is around building metrics. So in my organization, we work on a tool called ICP-ATF to build reports on top of Jira. And where I'm coming here is I'm more around the purpose-oriented games. So way I have designed my games is like I have a purpose behind the game, why I'm playing that particular game with my team, and what I want as an outcome, so to speak, as against what Mark has.
Yeah, and so I didn't kind of talk about that, but this whole Agile games thing, I came to it because I was just like, hey, there's got to be something fun like I can do with my team to distract them from all the hard stuff they're doing every day. And then I came upon some stuff out there on the web. Eventually, I went to the Agile Games Conference up in Boston. I think they just held it again. Great thing if you ever have a chance to go there because it's open space, it's very interactive, it's a lot more fun and less intimidating than you would think it would be. But anyhow, so I was like, fun, like let's just have the team have some fun and maybe we can slip in some vegetables, you know? And he was more like, I got a serious problem I need to fix with my team, what can I do to get them to see it kind of thing. And both things work. So, who wants to play a game? Oh, come on, you guys want to play. So here's the deal. You guys stand up, let's face this table. We're trying to make this easier.
Yeah, but I don't like that.
Wheels of steel cages in your mouth.
So you each take a deck of cards out of here, and I'll tell you what to do. And you guys, same thing. You stand up.
We will make two.
Yeah, one. We got 6. Okay, five. So how about John? You go with these people here. You guys face these guys.
Okay.
You'll be a group.
Basket.
Oh, I can hold the basket.
Oh, and maybe you take it
So why don't you guys?
Yeah, you
each form a group here. Put this on the chair if you do like.
All right, this is your chair.
Yeah, each take a deck of cards. We have a deck of cards. So quick rules. So everyone should have a deck of cards. You're going to hold them just with the one card facing you, face up. Okay? It's a simple game. There are 4 cards. Okay, so I'm going to say ready, set, go. And all at once, in your groups, you're going to try to be the first person to get rid of all your cards. To do that, you have to find someone else who has the same card as you facing up. And how you communicate that, that's up to you. So let's say I have high five, okay? High five. So for every card, there's an action. So what would you think the action for high five would be? High five. Give that person a high five. And I also want to hear woohoo! Okay?
And toss it in the basket. So you get rid of that card and move on to the next card.
There's a switcheroo. For switcheroo, normally we'd have you change places, but since we're constrained by furniture here, you go to spin around and maybe go whee! Okay? So once you've done the action with the person, then you together discard your card. Yeah, I think that's what you were trying to say, right?
Oh, so both people discard it? Do you have it?
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
And you can't have 3 or 4 do it at the same time.
What do you do to happy sound it?
So the other one is pound it, which is a fist pump. I want to hear an explosion on that one. And then you get happy salmon, put your arm out, you do the fish clap. You have to go.
I barely know you. How do you do now? I'm not sure I like it.
All right, whose cards did I take? Any questions?
What's switch arrow?
Switcheroo, you'd spin around and go, woo! Same thing
I
with
need to be
that.
standing, I think.
Yeah, you guys should stand. Normally you play in open space, and normally in switcheroo you change places with the person, but we're not gonna do that. That's just too much chaos.
All right, so whoever,
You take turns?
Don't join at the same
No,
time.
no, so this is not a taking a turns game. This is like the stock market of New York. Whatever it takes. Okay. All right, so ready, set, go.
High five.
High five.
put your guard in.
What we're for, we all high five.
So you have to put somebody in front of you.
Switch
And now you to get rid of the.
Oh, we all.
Happy Salmon, happy Salmon. Oh!
And we're stopped.
So the game was cheated.
The next one. High five.
Yes.
I saw a lot of these.
High five. We're done. Can we take some of our cards?
Yeah, next. And people are like, oh, what?
Are you gonna keep?
Spread them out.
Happy five.
High five. That's it.
I'm the only person I've seen, I ran into the Charlie. I remember seeing
How'd that feel? Confusing?
The game has some flawed rules.
Yeah, this, we got stuck a few times.
Oh, okay.
But Nick had said the worst story I ever did, so it's my next talk.
You were blocked.
The one suck. Just they never run.
We had impulses.
Like, oh, now we have to do the sorting exercise.
We can worry about it.
So this is the real game, putting them back together.
No, well, if you'll notice, I have 4 bins. The easiest way to sort them is to sort them by card type.
I mean, I could,
Anyway.
but.
So this is a great example of a energy booster after lunch. I thought this would be a good thing to do. But it's also like day-long planning, whatever horrible things you make your teams go through. This is a great distraction. Don't even tell them about it. Out in the break area, just start group playing it, and it'll spread like a disease. Everyone's like, "What are you doing? What was that? Why are you all laughing?" Because people hate when other people are laughing and they're not part of it.
So you shouldn't play it for more than 7 hours a day, though.
I think they have Happy Salmon. So, and this game is available all over the place, but definitely on Amazon. But I've seen it in Target and places like that too.
Keep sorting.
And it kind of demonstrates how
It's okay. When it's
simple kids games generally work for everybody, right?
Yes. I heard one group saying it's a good warm up.
Yeah. So this is my obligatory Dilbert slide. This is one of the caveats for me about playing games with engineers. Is let's play a game. You say 2 things about each other and one's a lie. He says, I love to play games like that. And the other thing is I eat food. It's, I'm all, being a registered introvert, I understand how engineers think. I was an engineer. And so I'm aware of the fact that you can only push some of this stuff so far sometimes. And you have to let people who need to have time away from other people have that space. So to answer your question about 9 hours, they'd probably check out around 30 minutes, I would think. Those of you not familiar, there's this great book out there from Stuart Brown called The Power of Play. If you have people in your organization that are like, this is just playing games, this is silly, this isn't being productive, this isn't getting work done, there's a lot of good research out there that talks about, and this is one of the reasons I jumped into this space pretty hard, is because we were very much pushing towards that creativity innovation space as we were transforming Capital One into a technology company, and have found that this stuff does create that engagement, that connection, and helps also people to see things that they wouldn't see otherwise because they're playing something that's not work, but it's very much like work. I'm not going to go through a lot of this in deep space, but a couple of the key spaces here about when you're creating a game. A game is like a safe place. You have these rules that aren't like life, and so people can experience things that are different. And the game belongs to the people playing. Don't hate the players, hate the game. So if the game didn't work out, the game was the problem, not because John cheated or whatever. Like all that stuff that comes out. And to that point, that's why you got to have the rules and the things to keep track and all that stuff. Big thing is keep it simple, make it fun. I mean, I've experienced, and I've tried a couple games myself, where you start to realize, okay, it's going to take me a day to remember these rules and know what you can and can't do, and this isn't fun anymore, kind of thing. And safety is another big thing. Like, if you're making people feel uncomfortable, a good example of that is blindfold games. A lot of people are like, oh, we should do this thing with blindfolds.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that don't like that idea, but that's okay.
Especially when you tie their hands together.
So I showed up at the annual games conference with blindfolds and ropes, and people were like, blindfolds? Like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to declare any security. No, but to that point, but that doesn't mean you don't play those things. If you think there's value in playing something, you want to try, you invite people to play, and if people want to sit and watch, great. If they only want to be there, fine. That's the whole point. It's not that, no, we as a team are going to play this game. It's like, no, I think we should play it. What do you think?
Like it and have
Right. And I don't want any feedback except thumbs up.
East German coding group is spoken.
But this is the key, and this is where, what resonated for me as the light bulb was that you play these games, and I heard it even a little bit here, like with this group that was struggling. You guys retrospect naturally. It's just what humans do when they play games. They immediately say, oh, I would have done better if I knew that was the rule, or oh, I see how that strategy worked. We should try that strategy, or you work really good with this person. We should, they start doing that already. So all you have to do is tease that out a little bit, but not too heavy-handed. Like, what do you guys think? What do you think of? And then later, when you're working with your teams on the Scrum Master, things will come up and you're like, this is like in that game when we had that, and they're like, yeah, I understand what you're talking about completely.
Alright, so this next is about when you design a game, there are different personalities in your team, like different team members like different things. So some of them, like we have 8 different personalities. So one is being an explorer, like they just like to go to different places, like move around. Next is creators, like they like games when you ask them to create something, like a castle or something. Jokers, so team members who like to have fun, like they like to make fun of the other person playing the game. Collectors, like collecting points and things like that. Does it resonate with any one of you? Like, who would you think you are more like? Who do we have explorers in this room? Explorers, okay. Do you have creators who like creating something as part of the game? Yeah. Jokers, like making fun, like laugh. Yeah, nice.
You didn't put cheaters down here.
Yeah.
That's my category.
Wait for the next slide. Collectors. Collectors. All right, cool. All right, so we have another 4.
There's more.
So directors, so these are where the natural leaders will demonstrate themselves, like they would like to direct other people, like where we should be going as a team. Kinesthetics or things like they want to move around and
Touch things.
yeah. Storytellers, like they like to talk about something that might have happened in past as part of playing the game. Competitors, so that's the personality, like they want to win it no matter what. So when you design a game, you may have to keep in mind these personalities as you're designing a game. Right.
Yeah, at the end, I think many of them apply to one person. Okay, so the other thing, when I work with Scrum Masters or people who are interested in games, are always like, but it's really hard to create games. Like this stuff's difficult, kind of thing. And as you just saw, I took a child's game, we played it, and there's more things we could probably do with it. So I talk about this whole lean approach to everything is about experimenting. So think of playing games as an experiment. We're going to try this thing. There's a lot of stuff you can find on the internet about games people have tried or played. There's a lot of consultants that create these things for a living, where they have facilitators, guides, and things, and you can try it. And what we do in my organization, we have a monthly meeting where a bunch of us get together, and we try these things as people who are it's a lot more safer that way. We're not in front of a team or anything, and we get to try it out kind of thing. And then we'll often take that out to our teams. But there's also this thing about courage, like it's really scary to put myself in front of a group of people to do something and have them try something. And it's like, but that's part of Scrum. That's part of the transparency of Scrum, is to say, I'm going to put this out there, and you guys are going to give me feedback, and we're going to work from that kind of thing. The other thing that works really good is what I'm doing right here, is co-doing things. Get with somebody else, and you feel so much braver when there's two of you than when there's one of you. And between the two of you have so much better ideas. I found co-presenting is like genius in a bottle, because it makes me accountable to him, he makes him accountable to me, and we created presentations that's 10 times better than we probably would have, because we make sure we get it done early. So I want to let him down, he doesn't want to let me down. We practice it, all those kind of things.
I think it's reverse, you just wait for that person to do it.
Well, there's that too. And then you just have your name on it. Yeah, you're good.
That's me.
But there's lots of good ideas out there. And this, some of the things that come out of me, I talked about the Games Club where we meet. We also try to do every year or so a Team Olympics where we get a bunch of these games together and get the teams to compete and kind of just re-energize the newer teams into this idea. And the thing that always strikes me when I look at the pictures is you either see people laughing, smiling, or deeply engaged. Like they're taking this like dead seriously. And the prizes for all this were little, plastic trophies that they wanted in the worst way. They take pictures with them and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so we're going to play another game. So you see on your tables here, there's these papers, and this is what we call the Marker Jig. And so there's a string, there's 5 strings, and I think we had 3 groups of 5. You want to each hold a string not any closer than the red mark on it. So the same groups get around one of the papers.
Does collaborative get in here?
Try and trace this.
So, I guess it goes like flat or something. Teamwork.
Program 3. We can do this.
Yeah, whichever first. I think we have one extra.
There you go.
More the better.
That works.
Okay, so this game, you'll see it on the paper.
I think we gotta flip it, yeah, we gotta flip it.
Point marked start, and there's a point marked finish.
Oh.
So what the object here is to, when I say go, to go from start to finish, but in the shortest route possible, but you have to stay within the blue marked path. So if you leave the path, then you just need to go back onto the path before you proceed. You don't have to start over. And if you skip over a part, you got to go back and redraw. It should be a continuous line from start to finish. Now, that's a fun thing to do. We don't have to do that here, but a fun thing to do with your teams if you do this. By the way, you can make this jig out of cardboard. I've done it. To do with your teams is to say, hey, how long do you think it's going to take to do this? Never done it before, right? Your teams never have to do anything to do with some tool they never saw before, right? No, never happens. No, they're always doing the same
That never
thing.
happens.
So this is a great exercise, talk about how we're adapting to new technology for this change, which is that, okay, I know something about drawing. Yeah,
Okay,
make sure it
let's
works.
make sure you don't see.
We're gonna test her here.
Would anybody else like to invite to wear a blindfold? Oh. I'm sorry.
That might work better.
No, if you have a big team, then you have to tell the other people
Right.
what they're doing.
But then you get the teams to write down what they think, how long it's going to take in seconds or whatever, and then we won't do it here, but obviously what do you think happens if you do it more than one time? You probably get better at it, right? So we see how those times drop. Usually it's by, it goes to a third. If it took a minute the first time, it takes
We gotta figure it out.
20 seconds, 15 seconds. It's
I think
pretty
this
long.
is just bad.
All right, so enough talking. You guys understand what we're doing?
Got it.
So you don't have to go around every letter completely, just the shortest path
Through the letter.
through the letter.
This time, in French.
Ready, set, go.
So far.
Where's that drum?
Looking good. Up.
You have to go down, down.
and then
Up. Follow me. Arm up.
left,
The way up.
left.
Let's go up there.
All right, you're down.
I don't want to pull us.
Right.
I think you have to just.
Straight. Down.
Good job.
The other team.
Wow.
What the way to go? Like that?
Right there. That's not bad.
Yeah, the little factor in there.
Wow.
That's
Alright,
a fluffy code.
Down, over, zero over, down. Oops.
Yeah.
The theory of fluid.
So there's a bit of a learning curve.
And whose line looks nice?
Yeah.
Oh, that, geez.
That's good enough.
Well, see, and then you can also have your product owners
That's always
that
good.
you said something
Enough.
like this.
Yeah, that means our definition of
Probably say that like multiple
I
times.
think, our line is 12% better than theirs.
That's my.
So can you see you guys doing that kind of thing with the teams you work with?
Yeah.
You see how, so what does that help? What comes out of that?
Communication.
Getting everybody to listen to me. Oh, collaboration.
But see, that can come out in that conversation.
It does,
which is
yes.
that, why isn't anyone listening to him? Like he had
Yeah, you had the eye view, right?
Because the interesting thing is, unlike in the team, you know, self-development or whatever the teams are doing, when they do this kind of thing together, they see each other differently. They'll suddenly be like, yeah, Sue's a loudmouth. And now it could be that Sue's really competitive, and then in the work environment, she's not like that. But you see different sides of people kind of thing. So
When I've done, we've done like the Marshmallow Challenge, and
Yeah.
we did like some other constructing kind of thing. We did that Jenga Tower game. And what I noticed was that each team, I ran like 5 teams through it, and each team like had its own character about the way they attacked the problem. So like this one, they were real risk takers. They failed a lot, but they were willing to jump in. And this team over here planned everything out before they touched anything. And
You
so
learn
that
a
was
lot
really
from watching.
interesting.
Was it similar to the way that they actually worked?
And it is similar to the way they actually
Well,
work.
we had, this was, but that was, you know, we had to go back to where we went off the line, and no one ever said we had to do that, but, well, you gotta go back to the, you know, where you went off the page.
Yeah, we don't want to cheat like some other teams did.
And I-
How are your teams like set up? Did you pick who was in the teams or was it like
With
restaurants
our
or-
regular development teams.
Okay.
So like the Jedi that always code together, the
Okay,
Darks
okay.
that always code together. I think the next time that I run one, which is probably September, is I'd like to mix them up so that you're not with the team that you
Yeah.
usually rely on.
Sure.
And
Yeah, because
See, they're gonna
You
be-
learn a lot about people.
Yeah, so I took this one to at the Agile Games Conference, an example, and to talk about how together we can come up with better things. I thought about most of the things you could do with this, and they're like, oh, have you thought about doing this on the floor? And I was like, no. And they're like, have you thought about doing this on the wall? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. Because we have
The
whiteboards
ceiling.
everywhere. No. And then we went from that to, well, instead of tracing an already marked out word, how about, like, I set up, so I was doing Olympics, I did the Olympic rings and dots, I had printouts for that. And it turns out that the team said it was easier tracing the dots than staying within the letters. And then the next thing is, write a word yourself, like, you know, a Pictionary, or draw a picture, or, you know, like, you can just go from there. So, because it blows people's minds when they get good at this on a flat surface, and then they have to go up on the wall, and they're like, oh, this is totally different. So,
Well, you could also probably enhance the game to try to figure out if you change the string around, right?
Couple of
Because perhaps
drinks
you put one per quarter, it might be easier to make it an equal distribution. And you can think about how to
do experiments.
do retrospect and try another round.
Yep, these are all good things. So, all right, you can sit down.
And another variation was we put kisses
I want to
as
find
well.
out about the
We
script.
put candies on the path.
Yeah,
We
so-
asked them to roll around the candy. So on that path, we put candies and we asked them to roll around the candy, and how many ever candies they roll around, they get to keep it.
Oh, by the way, were you telling me about how long that took?
How did you
43
time?
seconds was the best. Like whoever finished first, I think,
Did
who
you?
finished the first, I think they took 43 seconds.
A little over a minute. I was thinking a minute 45, so it was actually faster than I thought.
The teams I've seen that have gotten the fastest at it, if you stand back and watch, they move together like a machine. You know, like,
Yeah.
they've got that all figured out. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're not doing that. All right. So he's going to talk a little bit about the objective-oriented games.
Alright, so this is where the problem-focused games I was talking about comes in. So what I did is, there's a book on 5 dysfunctions of a team. So it's a survey out there with 38 questions on it. Your team members, each team member takes that survey. This is more around behavior-oriented, and based on the results, they scored you like where your team is on each area of line. So there are 5 dysfunctions. Mark, if you go next slide. So they rate you saying, okay, how is the level of trust in your team? How is there a fear of conflict? So I want to provide a clarification, like conflicts are not bad, but do we have a fear of conflict in your team? Do we have a lack of commitment, lack of accountability, or inattention to results in your team? So this is the generic picture that you get overall based out of the survey that your own team members take. So the questions are more around behavior, like have you seen this happen in your team? And they would just, all questions have same answers, like never, rarely, occasionally, all the time, or things like that, or doesn't apply. So like depending on what they answer, you get this survey, and they rate you on each area. So next is what I did is, once I got the results for my team, I knew, okay, where I have to work in. So I saw like, what do you mean by absence of trust? So that's where the team members are not open with each other. They are concealing their weaknesses. Like even if they're weak on something, they would not ask for help from the other team member. They would just try to hide it, thinking, oh, other person would judge me. So this happens when there's absence of trust within the team members. So what I did is, so thinking of that, I said, okay, what kind of games can I play with my team so that the trust is built and they can communicate with each other more openly and honestly rather than hiding it. So these were the 2 games that I could think of. And every slide on the games, there is a references like where this, which has an elaborate description of what each of these games is.
Yeah, these slides are already out on the Agile Philly site from the fall conference.
So these are some of the games like Baseball Toss. You play those games with them. Personal journey worksheet. So this is the journey worksheet that I hand over. Give them 50 minutes to jot it down. Pretty much their own journey, like where they started, with how many other companies they have been there in past, and what technology they worked. What was the happy moment? What was the best time of the career? So some of them were like they said like so interesting thing that came out of was some of them they said like I was at the peak of my career, but I was not at all satisfied where I am. So they try to go back and think of where they have come from as well, and they get to hear other people's story as well. So after I give them 20 minutes, they share, each individual team member shares out what their journey looks like in order to build that trust. Because trust, if you were to build trust, you just have to know the other person well enough to understand what context that person is coming from. So I'll skim through the rest of the slides pretty quick.
Wait, I'm sorry, just, can you go back to, what kind of questions are on the ball there?
So I made up, so this is an internet picture, but you can make up any questions you like. Like you don't have to confine like.
Just like open-ended
Questions, like what's your hobby, or what's the best book you have read so far, or anything, like open-ended questions. Personal questions though.
It's a general question so is everybody who works in your team co-located in the same place?
For me, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this one, what I did is for the second game, one person was in Canada. So I took up, I had a PDF, so I sent him the PDF, he took a printout at his end, so that 20 minutes he was writing it down on his remote location, and we did it in our main office, and then when the readout happened, like, we did it over the phone.
How did the baseball toss work with him?
No.
Virtual toss.
You can have somebody stand in to catch the ball and then just read the question.
Yeah.
And that one would still work, especially if you have video.
Some fun, eh?
On
It
the
takes a
what
little
did you
work.
learn section in the personal journey worksheet, is that what the person learned or what the team learned from
So
that person?
we understood that person more. So like somebody's mentioned, like I never worked on UI anywhere in the past. So when next time when somebody, if he's asking a question related to UI or UX, others would understand, saying, okay, he has always worked on Java side and all the middle layer. So it just like made things that was obvious to him, but all the other team members also came to know about it as well.
I think it's about what you're saying is if you have a lack of trust, one of the things you want to do is get to know each other better.
Right.
And like that personal journey worksheet is a very quick way for people to know a little bit more about each other very quickly.
Right. Cool. So next one is the fear of conflict. Like if in that diagram, like you see, like there's a fear of conflict. Like people are not discussing controversial topics, thinking, oh, other person would feel bad if I raise this one up. like in retrospectives, we know there's a problem, but people don't want to talk about it, thinking other person would feel offensive about it. So if you have that, definitely it's not going to help your team improve or get to the next stage. So if you have that kind of dysfunction in your team, what you can do is, these are the two games that we talked about. So I know Gretchen over there mentioned about like different personalities about the team member. So a disc model is something very similar, where if you do this activity, you will know like, okay, what each person's personality is around. Like D stands for dominance, conscientious, influence, and steadiness. So you get to know what that personality is and how that person likes to work with other people as well. So it becomes like, this is what my preferences are, and everybody says it, like every individual. And if somebody identifies, okay, I fall under dominance, then I would read out certain other characteristics of that particular personality as well. And that person may not have all of them, but largely it would be very similar to how dominant person looks like.
Just a comment on that. I don't know if this is where you got it from, but there's a podcast called Manager Tools, and they use this and they give you strategies, like once you know what somebody's disc profile is, or you can sort of estimate it too, but if you have your team do that, then there's certain strategies you can sort of adjust your behavior based on what the other person's disc model is.
You said managers?
It's called Manager Tools. Yeah, it's a podcast.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Right. So next one is lack of commitment. So this is where unnecessary delays are happening. People are thinking, like talking about it, but not committing to do it after the retrospective. Like if you see that particular kind of dysfunction, the games that you can play with them is to take them to the escape room or scavenger hunt. So what happens is you are playing as a team, you're discussing the strategy, and you're doing the actions for your strategy right there and then. So it just creates a kind of cadence saying, okay, we can succeed if we stick to our guns. If we discuss a strategy and if we do it, it may work for us as well. Like as against going back and revisiting what we talked or agreed upon and not committing to it. So these games would
awesome team building events. If you haven't done it, it really is.
Yeah, and for the folks that aren't all co-located, so escape room might be a challenge. We're going to try to, if we have time, we're going to play a game that you can play virtually that is just like an escape room, but without being an escape room.
Next one is avoidance of accountability. Like if there is a person, if there is unnecessary burden on one person in the team, like if every decision is being made by just the team leader, and it's not that the team leader wants to do that, but other team members would not take a decision. And like if you have that kind of situation in your team, that kind of a dysfunction, I think the game that you can play is a Pictionary game out there. So it's something like you split yourselves into two different groups. One person draws a card, and we ask that person to not say anything but draw it out, and the rest of the team members have to guess what that person is trying to draw, and depending on the card that the person has. So it kind of creates an accountability on that person. And like Mark mentioned, like you start that conversation, you break the ice. Like if somebody drew something which did not make sense, giving them the feedback as part of the game is much simpler than giving them a feedback as they are working on a software development part. So it's just like these games would just break the ice between the two people if they are not sharing feedback with each other honestly or transparently. Another one is team is not growing, it's not improving, it's just stagnated. They keep doing the same thing and they know it's not working for them. If you have that kind of a dysfunction and they're not focused on one thing, like WIP limit could be one of those things, like they tend to get distracted with so many things that come in that play and not stick to just doing one set of items that they should be working on. I think this is another game that I played with my team is split them into two groups, have them face each other, observe the other group, and then ask one group to turn around and have them change 10 things about themselves, across the group. So they swap the shoes that they were wearing, or one person removed the belt, and then we ask the other group to spot those changes, like what are things changed in the other group. And it just reinforced the fact that how if you focus well, you can get the desired results out of it. So that's and again, like if you want more details around this particular game, then it has references there, and more games references are there on the others, the bottom link as well. So more ideas there. We try to. So in our other presentation, we had 2 games for each dysfunction. So other games are now as part of the link and up there.
All right, so let's see how we're doing on time here. 2:15. I think there's only 5 minutes between us and the next session. Is that the way the calendar works?
15 minutes.
I gotta run the bed.
Oh, it's 15?
Oh,
No, no.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
All right, so we gotta be
I gotta run the
careful.
bed before my session.
Yeah.
You gotta tell it 2:40 and
Okay.
the next one starts.
So, if you,
We have 25 minutes.
we still got time. All right.
You got plenty of time.
So I talked about there's this game. This is the game. It's called Keep Talking, Nobody Explodes. It works well for like a Scrum team size. I only have the software on one machine, so it's up to you. We can do it a bunch of different ways, but if you'd really like to play it, if we can get like 5 volunteers, and then everyone else will just kind of watch. Does that make sense? So let's try. Well, I got 7 manuals, so actually 7. So put your hand up if you'd like to try to solve the bomb, and I'll give you the manual.
Solve the bomb.
Be the bomb. Become the bomb.
So we have here one at least look at it so you can see it.
I have to add to the next one.
Throw one of this there. All right. So the way this works is there's a bomb and it looks like this. And actually, I'll bring it up and show it to you. But the way this game works is you have a diffuser, one person, they're the only person that can see the bomb. And so they can literally be on the phone in another country, it doesn't matter. Everyone else is within audio communication with them, they can be in the same room, obviously. And everyone else has the manual. And depending on what the bomb diffuser, actually, if there's a volunteer who wants to be the diffuser, let me know, because I can help you through that part. But I can expedite things by being the diffuser, so I played, I guess. But depending on what that person describes, you have to try to figure out in the manual how you can help them diffuse this bomb before they blow up. So, like when I've done this as a retrospective with some of my teams, and I've had my product owner be the diffuser because that's the primary communication with the team that maybe could use a little bit of. Plus, it helps them get used to it because the product owners usually are really good at describing what things look like because they have to do that a lot. You know, where if you put somebody who's more introverted on that role to begin with, they might struggle with it. But I think once the teams get used to it, it's one of those things that has like a bazillion levels, and it's highly addictive, and you just keep wanting to solve it, kind of thing. But let me jump into it. Any questions about the general concept of it? So this is available commercially, but it's like $15 on a website. You have to download the software, and the manual's out there for free, kind of thing. Let me jump over to the game. No.
Keep talking with big splits. No.
A lot of games work well for retrospectives. I mean, like the Pictionary he was showing, you can do that as, instead of saying what's going on with a team that you want to talk about, you have to draw it, or you have to make it with Lego bricks or something like that. It's interesting when you get people to do things creatively, they'll feel safer than having to write something down. The music is a big part of this thing. Show you there's an intro with it which helps explain the way it works. But basically, so here's a bomb, and you can, so there's wires, so you'll have to tell me which wires to cut, and then eventually the bomb will go. It told me I was supposed to do the blue one. Yeah. See, you're already yelling it out. It's another one. Click left.
Okay, you know exactly what. Are there any black wires?
Well, this is just for play right now. Select. This is gonna be fun without a mouse. All right. So that just gives you some idea. Let me turn that sound down.
I'm doing it.
All right. So we're going to play the first bomb. Does anybody have any questions at this point? So at this point, I can't see what you have, and you're not supposed to see what I have, so I guess I've got to stop.
I'm sorry, I have to go.
Okay, no problem.
So if he's like, normally, like when I play, we like, like I'll take the one that looks like a maze. And it's like, oh, there's a maze
If
here.
it's bigger than a bread box.
Up to you to kind of figure it out. But there's some.
But you can see at the end, it tells you that we finished with a minute 40.
So if they're like on the phone or they have headphones in or something like that.
So we're going to get a different puzzle this time.
Hold on, I have to turn this on.
It's a game.
It's
It's
this
this.
game.
I've only ever done like a simple like.
What's the free play?
Never played this game.
But do you know what's the free play?
I think that's where it's just, I think you get to totally control what kind of games you're playing. I don't know. I haven't gone much further than this. The basic progression is here is we'll do something old, something new. So this one will have at least one of the puzzles we already just did. See what that feels like, and then we'll still have something that we're not familiar with. But yeah, there's settings where you can change how many strikes there are, how much time you have, you know, all that kind of stuff.
You want volume?
Yeah. I think it's
Yeah.
there it is.
That one is the last column.
Okay. So I've got the hold button, the big button with the hold on it.
To do those in order.
No, we can do any order.
Okay.
Tell me what you want to do. But
You can do the symbols. Do the symbols.
Okay. But now you can see what they are. So yeah, what's your hand?
It's a lot easier. So
Like
we do
a not
so we do the
equals.
train track first. And then the AE. Hey, don't look. Oh, sorry. And then the what candle holder, whatever that is.
And you see how it gives feedback, and the person standing here typically doesn't tell the team that. It's really interesting what people will say and what they won't
Is that
say.
a little H? What's that?
And they won't tell them that, oh, the green light just went on, that module's done sometimes. And people are like, are we good yet? It's like, oh yeah, I moved on to the next module.
That's on the next page there. Let's just hold. Button is blue, the button says port. Now, where's my battery? Step mate.
Says it's
Are there batteries? Or the battery
Yellow.
order.
Also,
None of the above apply.
also, as you progress, there's distracted noise. Like, see that alarm clock? It'll start going off. There's kind of like escape rooms that way, where they create distraction where you can't figure out what's going on.
So press and hold it.
I got a red.
Oh, okay.
How many batteries are on this? You know,
What's next?
I don't know.
I'm not sure I can check.
you can spin the thing around.
Release it when it has a 1 in any position.
I see one battery.
So you should press the hold button and release when it shows a 1 on the timer.
Yeah, I can't see the timer now.
Well, we're screwed then.
Is this the end now?
This
Is
is
the
the
last one? It's not
no,
at
this
the
is the third. This is the second
Can
one.
you go to the memory one?
Go to
There we
the,
go.
that number guy.
There's
Release
a
it when
one.
it has a 1.
There's a one. All right, now we're good.
And the button says
Now
more.
the numbers.
That's on
There's more
page
than one that we can the bone. The button says
No, displays 1.
light. More than
Press the number 4. Press the button in the first. No, the first.
First?
Yeah, do the first.
Oh, yeah. First one, right? Stage 3.
Same
Place
label.
choose, press the button with the same label. Uh-oh.
I think it was 1.
Ah,
1.
1. Oh no! That killed us.
I think we're running out of time.
Oh, it's fun. Aha.
Yeah, so
I don't know if there was a time or we ran out of time. I don't remember.
so that
we
We're
ran
gonna
out
be
of time.
teammates.
right, so that the twist on that one was that you had to remember your moves. That's the first time you were asked to do that.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that one has a steep learning curve.
Everything's around.
With that one, I've had teams that were lucky to do the right steps the whole way through the first time, so then the next time they forgot they had to remember the moves, and then they so it's so interesting because you see teams do this with with their day-to-day work, and to see them do it in a game is just like, oh yeah, it's just like that. Okay.
Cool.
So let me get back to my slides here.
This is one of those.
Yeah, you can get the whole concept on estimating, and I want to turn it into
To get people started, do you like walk through and let them see it so they know what's going on first?
a small one.
Depends. I usually show them the demo
Yeah, and then they get to kind of get a perspective on what.
so they don't feel totally
Generic.
disoriented, but I would say it depends on the maturity of the people you have as far as if they really like the challenge. Because I did it with Scrum last year. We didn't show them. They had no idea what you were seeing. But they were way better.
With very little information.
It depends on how much you think people are going to struggle with description. Because like that last one too, you notice how there was a button of bars that as you made progress it was going up? Well, that was telling you that you had to get 5 things before you were going to be done, right? So there's all these visual cues in that interface that detailed people will pick up on and say something, but other people will just like, oh, it didn't say that, because they're just scrambling because there's these 7 or 5 people looking at them saying, what does the bomb say? It's like so much pressure. So the last part of this was to maybe think about, and we can do this as a group. Think about the 3 games we played, or maybe some other game you played, but this idea of extending the game or doing a different experiment, so like can anybody think about something different you'd like to try with one of the things that we did here?
Yeah, the bomb game, but add alcohol.
That's legit. That's cool. That's why it's popular, I believe. There's also and I think I have it on the slide after this, there's one called Space Team, which is a free mobile app.
Yeah, my kids play that.
Okay, that's one that if everyone's cool with loading an app on their phone, you don't have to go buy software, you don't have to be constrained by anything, and you still can play it with people who are not in the same location. Because you can do it over on conference. Because we had BG on the phone one day when we played this.
Okay.
And you have, instead of one person being in control, you're all in control of the spaceship, and there's these random commands coming across your phone. Everyone gets different commands, and the command may or may not be for the controls you have control of on your phone. So you have to communicate to everybody else. Turn conductor valve 3. Shut off the XYZG thing or whatever. And at some point, there's usually everyone has to turn over and shake their phone, or you'll blow up too. But because it allows it to be connected over the web, which is the best way to play it, I think. It can also be over a local air network or whatever.
And it keeps
track of all that.
The ship is deteriorating as you go.
Right. There's this pressure. The sound gets more dire.
That's Space Team.
Yeah.
Space Team.
I have it on a slide. Hold on.
Okay.
There it is.
Sorry.
Another quick fun one is, I don't know if you guys have ever seen GeoGuessr. It basically uses Google Maps to show locations around the world. You get people to guess. I've used this for Icebreaker too. Because it just literally takes you into the Google map and you can spin it around and try to look for clues like, do you see French? Do you see Spanish? Isn't that on the wrong side of the road? Like all those kind of things. The one that we did last week, it was Mount Rushmore. And you turned around and you looked up through the woods. You're like, wait a minute, I know what that is. But then the best part is, so where is that? It's one of the Dakotas.
But one of the Dakotas that the people actually visit. That's
And so on the Google map, you put your guess by putting a spot on the map, and then it gives you points based on how close you were, kind of thing. It's a great distraction, and everybody enjoys trying to figure that out. But anyhow, yeah, this was the space team. That works really well. We did that actually in the Agile Olympics. And you were talking earlier about the different styles of teams. Some teams sat at, like, they were at a conference table and they told everyone what they were seeing on their phone. Other people decided to put all their phones in a concentric circle right next to each other, and their heads were literally next to each other, and they communicated that way. And it was pretty amazing because it eliminated all the distraction of everybody else. They were totally focused on what was going on. They could see what was going on everybody else's phone. In some cases, they saw the message for their phone before it was even spoken because they could see it. And they did that all on their own. I mean, we didn't tell them how to do this kind of thing. But it just showed how people given the same problem will come up with different solutions for it.
There's another like online interactive game called Jackbox TV. I think the game is called. So it's something you'd have to buy like on Steam or something.
Okay.
And mostly it's like a competitive game, but there is one that goes a little bit more team-based, which is like find the faker. So everyone gets a prompt, and it's like, if you've ever did this, then raise your hand. But someone's prompt says, you're the faker, try to blend. So like, it all takes 2 seconds, so then it goes up, and if you see someone like raise their hand, like, and then they're gonna be like, well, when did you go there? And you're like, last year. And they're like, no, you didn't, because I was with you last year. And then everyone has to collaboratively kick them out of the game and vote on who.
Okay.
But that's the only one that's like kind of team-based a little bit. But it's kind of funny. The hardest one is there's a point. There's point to whoever you think did this. Then there's raise your hand, and then there's put up how many fingers, something.
Okay.
But, so it can get pretty funny.
Well, but I think that sounds great. And I've heard other people on different teams talk about a game that they play with their friends.
Yeah.
That's another way to get a game to play. If there's somebody on the team who's passionate about some game, get the team to play it. You've already got a champion. Somebody's going to think this is great. And typically, to your point, you can find a team element of it. And you weren't the person who said we should play this game. Kind of thing. It's like, no, let's play this game and let's talk about what we learned from it.
Do have a question. Anyone have some experience having some nice game for offshore team?
Offshore?
Well, this bomb game works and the space game works for offshore.
Space games.
Things like that, things that are online and collaborative. Because the key for that to me, and I think we had some groans before with like the beach ball or whatever, is that these things equalize everyone. Everyone's at the same disadvantage. As soon as people co-located have an advantage, you've now opened up the can of worms you have every day. Which is that I'm an orphan, you guys forget about me, I'm out here wherever. I have a couple contractors that work remote from home. And I've worked in that situation myself, so I try very hard to give them, like at stand-up, I had them go first, even though the co-location approach is usually for them to go last, because they're on the phone, some subspecies of human, kind of. Do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think the key in all the games is retrospective after the game is played. I think that would open up like the feedback chain and it would break the ice between the two teams. Always focus on retrospective after each game.
I gotta set it up, man. I'm gonna throw you out.
Yeah, you better. All right, well, I think we're good. The slides will be out there. Feel free to reach out to us. BG's actually moving on to Vanguard, so you won't find him in Capital One anymore.
Oh, I can't trust him now.
I expect to see you every